What brought me here? Well, I was the first to go to college in my family. I'm the oldest of three. And my parents and myself, we had the best intentions, but we were uneducated consumers. We had to take a blind leap of faith. From a financial standpoint, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty for me, it wasn't pretty for my parents. And then that mistake was compounded 2 years later when my parents sent my younger sister to college. And the end result of that is the fact that my mother's 66 years old. She's taking the train to Boston at 5:30 a.m. every day. My father's 64 years old. He's working 2 jobs. The main reason is because they have too much college debt from myself and my sister, and they're old school people, too proud to accept any help.
I grew up in New Jersey, one of 4 kids. My mother still currently working as a guidance counselor. My father, a contractor, still working. And luckily for me, they put a huge emphasis on education. And I'm grateful for that, but I did see the fear, the anxiety, the burden that really put on them. And when I got into this business about a decade ago, it didn't take very long for me to realize that that was not unique to my family. And most families are terrified when it comes to approaching this process. And it's been our experience when families approach such a significant investment as college, if they make decisions from a fear-based place, they're bound to make some mistakes. We've seen firsthand that there are many, many flaws in this process, and I think that it makes sense for us to expose what those flaws are, because those flaws are set up to help these colleges and help the federal government for that matter.
Well, if you'll indulge me, I'm gonna go on a little rant here. I'm gonna exercise some demons, and this course is not about preaching negative and throwing stones, but it's relevant because we had a broken system here. It's a collective problem. We all need to share some blame on this. But let's start at the top. Let's start with the federal government. They're the ones that decide, first of all, how much each family should pay per year for college, what they can afford per year. That's the starting point for who dictates that number. I had 2 siblings, so we were a family of 5. And when I applied for financial aid, I have 2 working class parents. And back then they made about $120,000 a year. Their life savings outside of retirement was roughly $30,000. The federal government said that with that, they could afford $24,000 a year for college, per student, per year. So that's our starting point. And then that number gets sent off to all the colleges that I apply to. And if the college is more expensive than $24,000, and as we all know, most colleges are, well, then we're very likely gonna pay more than that. That doesn't mean we're just gonna pay the $24,000. And of course, that's what happened with me. So it was more than $24,000 a year. I couldn't afford that. My parents couldn't afford that. And that's an example of how most families go through the process. But who I really wanna focus on for a little bit, because this is where most of my frustrations lie, are these colleges themselves, okay? Now again, we're not here to bash colleges. We love the experience. We believe in the investment. But these guys are, I could almost call them cutthroat in terms of how they run their business, and make no mistake about it, that's what they run.
One of the biggest, I would say laughable flaws is the fact that these colleges will hide behind the fact that they call themselves nonprofit organizations, okay? At the end of the day, these are multi-billion-dollar money-making machines. And that's the mentality that families need to take when approaching this process. They are big corporations. They run their business as such. They're worried about their bottom line, okay? They're not worried about the family's bottom line. They're worried about their own bottom line, just like any other corporation. And they have multi-million-dollar marketing budgets, marketing teams. They're preying on the students. They're preying on the parents, and they're selling them the quad, and they're selling them the dorms and the food and the lazy rivers and the pools, okay? Because they don't want you to think about the fact that this school costs $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, okay? So they do that for a purpose. The other main flaw in this whole process is the fact that families don't understand what a particular college is actually going to cost them until the end of senior year. At the end of this whole process, after the admissions applications have gone in, after they've gotten their acceptances, and they have about 1 month to make one of the biggest financial decisions of their life. To us, that just seems backwards, and we're looking to change that mentality. We want you to start the process at the finish line.
These colleges are unfair, and we have great personal friends that are financial aid officers and financial aid counselors. They're not gonna sign off on this course. And that's fine with us because we're not in the business of getting more money to the colleges. We're in the business of getting more money in our clients' pockets. We're advocates for the families, and that's our responsibility. That's our job. I'll give you some anecdotes from this year. We have a family that's a mixed household family, some step kids, and they had 3 seniors in high school at one time. A lot of moving parts, right? And they missed a deadline for one of the students, her first choice, by 1 day. Some things got lost in translation. The college said, not only are you not getting financial aid this year, all 4 years. Nice Catholic Jesuit school, okay? Would not budge from that, and even when we were confident we could make a difference, there was nothing we could do either. We have schools right here in our great city of Boston that will systematically, subtly decrease financial aid each year as they rise inflation. And for most families, that kind of goes unnoticed. It's great for the school's margins, but guess what? That several $1,000s a year, that makes a big difference to our clients.
It's been 12 years of being on the front lines and dealing with these colleges and seeing all of the flaws, and there are many flaws, of this process. And we think it makes sense to finally expose what those flaws are. So we are here to advocate for the families, and we want to expose these problems so nobody has to be victim to them anymore.
I bash the colleges, I bash the federal government, but to be fair, we as consumers, we deserve some blame too. Myself, when I went through this personally, I did what most people do, and that's I went shopping first, and then I'm told what my budget is, and have to figure out a way to pay for it.
We want you to start at the finish line. You have the right to know what a school is going to cost you before you even send in the applications. And that's how we think you should approach this major investment. Our mission with this class is to spread the word to the masses, to change the mentality on how families approach paying for college, so that way they don't fall victim of what we think is a broken system. So that way they could start making decisions from a place not of fear, but from a place of abundance.
So what I can tell you is I'm fed up with it. I know I can speak with everyone at CFS. They're fed up with it, and we want this to change. We need it to change, and we're done being bystanders waiting for it to change. So we see it as our personal responsibility, as our mission to educate families, to empower them so that they are not repeating the same mistakes that so many before them have made.